This video contains too much spoilers. I would suggest first read Goodbye Eri and then come back because it's an amazing story and it's like only 208 pages. But if you're really lazy to read, you can just watch this video, no judgment.
The year is 2022 and the buzz around this silly little anime called Chainsaw Man is getting louder and louder. So you do what any other unemployed basement dweller does. You finally watch a mainstream anime. But something felt weird. This isn't just your usual shonen. I got obsessed with Chainsaw Man. So after the first season finished airing, I took up the manga and holy fucking shit. I became so obsessed with everything related to Chainsaw Man, but then employment hit. For the past 2 years, I haven't really read as much manga as I would want to. So when I finally got time, I quit my job. I instantly continued where I left off. My first manga after a 2-year hiatus was one by none other than Tatsuki Fujimoto again. And this one is called Goodbye Eri. One of Fujimoto's one-shots, a 40-minute read. This quickly became one of the most bizarre yet amazing manga I ever read. Now, before we dive deeper into the emotional trauma Fujimoto has so lovingly prepared for us, we need to talk about how Goodbye Eri doesn't just tell you a story about movies. It is a movie disguised as a manga. Through the cinematic manga, you can clearly see Fujimoto's love for movies as the story unfolds in the same 4 rectangular panel layout in every page, which acts as the screen through which you can see our protagonist Yuta's perspective as he films his ill mother and our titular character Eri in their last few days, but with just a bit of fantasy. Yuta is a 12-year-old kid who just got his first ever smartphone and, like any other child brimming with excitement, he wants to film everything. And in these footages, you can clearly see Yuta's attitude towards life. You can feel the weight of both the camera and embarrassment when Yuta's first film flops and he gets subjected to his friends' harsh reviews and opinions, calling him disrespectful and heartless, and as he runs through the staircase of the same hospital where his mother died to get to the roof, fully committed to end his life. As soon as Yuta got his first smartphone, he has been tasked with the painful request to film his dying mother. But his camera, like his attention, wanders, stray cats, bugs. Her children unconsciously protect themselves from trauma. Blurry, out of focus footages. It's not just poor filmmaking, it's how Yuta actually perceives his last days with his mother. At the end of the film, Yuta is expected to be with his mother, capturing her dying breath, but he runs out of the hospital followed by an explosion. Dead explosion mother. This is a child's understanding of closure. Movies need explosions, right? Big dramatic endings. It's easier to blow something up than to watch it slowly fade away. And at this point is when we realize we are no longer watching raw footages. We are watching the edited film. Everything we've seen has been curated by Yuta to show us. Yuta's mother wasn't really the gentle mother as we thought. She used her TV producer background to abuse and manipulate Yuta into making videos of her, which she later wanted to release as showing the world how she battled her illness. She would go so much as to physically berate Yuta for taking blurry, poor shots or when he would get distracted. Even on her deathbed, she calls him useless when Yuta is not present to film her dying breath, showing her selfishness, and what could have been a happy memory of Yuta and her mother spending their time together became a stressful, traumatic and grueling chore for Yuta. So now if we think about Dead Mother Explosion, it could be more than just childish immaturity. It could be pent-up resentment and dislike that Yuta held against his mother, a refusal to give her the dignified ending she demanded after all those days of cruelty. Yuta's editing becomes a way for him to bend reality as he wants to. It's easier to ignore trauma if you can turn it into fiction. Through his editing, he remembers only the good parts, unwilling to accept death by making it just another movie. This speaks volume when you compare it to the current social media age where every post, every story, every shared moment is edited. We show what we want others to see, creating fictional narratives from real experiences. Now, even though Yuta's movie was a big flop, more than anything, Yuta needed a comeback. And that's when enters Eri, who only sees potential in Yuta. The second half of the story focuses on the time Yuta spends with Eri watching movies in the abandoned building as they both share their passion for cinema. They watch hundreds of movies there, so Yuta can learn more about cinematography and what it takes to make a good movie. They even pick up on each other's movie watching habits, like how Eddie throws a peace sign every time the hero in the movie scores a big win, and how Yuta says, "Oh yeah," every time they show tits on screen. Eddie sees Yuta's potential and offers to play the role of a dying vampire who wants Yuta to film her last few days. But fiction soon becomes reality as we find out Eddie is really suffering from a terminal illness. And once again, Yuta must film someone he loves and deeply cares about in their final moments. This time there's more proper guidance and encouragement. It is truly heartbreaking to see them spending their last few days together, as Eddie teaches Yuta that acknowledging happiness is as important as documenting sadness. So now when the final moment comes, Yuta doesn't run. Yuta doesn't ignore his reality with yet another explosion. He stays, films, and creates something that makes the audience cry. The second film is a hit. The audience is left crying and bawling. Yuta throws up a peace sign in the memory of Eddie, since this is a big win for him and shows how we carry people forward through their gestures, their habits, and their influence on us. Suddenly, we are hit with 4 pages of complete darkness. Is the manga equivalent of letting a film's final shot linger, forcing us to confront our emotions without distraction. But Yuta doesn't find closure. Years go by and he's still re-editing the movie again and again, obsessively. And then, as if his childhood wasn't traumatic enough, Yuta hits deeper levels of rock bottom when his entire family dies in a car accident and he's the only survivor. Fully determined to once again end his life, he finds himself in the same abandoned building where he spent countless hours with Eddie watching movies. And as he walks through the door once again, he's not alone anymore. He finds Eddie watching movies like nothing changed. Of course, she's a 1200-year-old vampire, watching Yuta's film to remember who she was. And as Yuta leaves the building, he finally finds the perfect ending to his Goodbye Eri movie: an explosion. The explosion finally ties everything that maybe nothing was real. Everything since page 1 was a movie. Now the ending is very much open to interpretation, like is Eddie actually a vampire or was it filmed way before? What if Yuta's father played the old Yuta and Eddie never died? The rectangular panels were the bars of our cage. We have been trapped in Yuta's edits all along. Goodbye Eri isn't just about making movies. It's about how we all direct our own lives. In an age where every moment can be captured, edited and shared, Fujimoto asks, what's the difference between living and performing? Maybe like all great films, the answer isn't in what's real or fake. It's in what we choose to take with us when the credits roll.